Good evening, everyone. Welcome. It is 6:00 p.m. So we are excited to welcome you to the virtual Proposition A public forum. We're so glad that you're here online with us. My name is T. Mai Dong. I am the Chief Equity Officer, and I'm so thrilled to have joined the Round Rock ISD community. This evening, I will be standing in for our Chief Officer of Public Affairs and Communications, who will be coming on board soon. But for now, I have the pleasure of hosting this event and serving as moderator for our esteemed panel. And of course, for you, our wonderful community members who have signed on to learn more about this webinar and more about Proposition A. So before I introduce the panelists, please allow me to share how our time together will unfold. We will begin with a brief presentation to provide information about Prop A, and then we will follow with a Q&A session where the panelists will respond to your questions. Now, prior to the forum, we did provide an opportunity for you to ask questions in advance. So when we do get to the Q&A session in our agenda, I will begin with those questions, and then we will proceed with the questions that are coming in real time. During the presentation portion of the agenda, we will not be answering questions, but we do invite you to enter questions that come to mind using the Q&A feature that's available. So if you hover the bottom of your screen, you should see a Q&A feature, and that is where you can enter your questions that come to mind as you're listening to the presentation. Those questions will be addressed when we get to the Q&A portion of the evening. And so without further delay, let's go ahead and begin the forum by inviting our panelists to briefly introduce themselves. So panelists, if you don't mind, when I state your role, if you could come off mute, say a quick hello, please state your name so that our audience can see you. And of course, we will start with our superintendent.
Good evening, everyone. Hafed Azay, Superintendent. I'm so honored to be among you tonight, giving you some information about Prop A.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aziz. And next, we have our Senior Chief of Schools and Innovation.
Welcome, everyone. Dr. Natalie Nichols, and thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Nichols. Let's welcome our Chief Financial and Operating Officer.
Thank you. I'm Dennis Covington, and we appreciate you all joining us this evening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Covington. And of course, we have our Chief Human Resources Officer, Mr. Eddie Curran.
Good evening, everybody. It's great to be here with you all, and we really appreciate you taking the time with us this evening as well. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, panelists. And I do want to just take a moment to recognize our community relations team, who is also present and who will be assisting with any technical issues on this virtual forum. So thank you, panelists, for being here, but mostly thank you to all of you, Round Rock ISD staff and community members, for taking the time to join us, to be in community with us as we learn more about Proposition A. And now I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Aziz to begin the presentation portion of our evening.
Thank you again, Timai. Obviously, what I'm going to do first is just a quick overview of the presentation and what we're trying to attempt to do tonight. But before anything, I want to thank all our community members here and parents for joining us tonight. I know that you're here because you care about our schools, you care about our students, and you care about our educators, and you care about the success of and the future of our district and community as a whole. So again, thank you very much for everything you do for our district and for our students and staff. As you know, in Round Rock ISD, our focus always going to be students first, right? But we also, our business is people, meaning like, as you know, 85% of our budget, for example, really goes to salaries. So that goes to pay our teachers, our staff, our support staff, our leaders, everyone really, so we can ensure that we are taking care of our students and meeting their needs, right? And out of that, 88%, as a matter of fact, of that budget is actually really allocated to the campuses. And that's everyone that works at it's a campus-based staff member. That's a teacher, teacher aide, a counselor, a nurse, a custodian, a food services. So that's 88% of our budget that is dedicated to salaries actually is dedicated in particular to school-based staff members, right? So that's what I mean by people, right? So our people are the one who are making it every day happen for our students. They are the one who are interacting with our students every day and ensuring that, again, that our students' needs are met and make sure that they are reaching their full potential, inspiring them to learn and empower them for life. Because we want to have the best of the best and keep the best of the best, it's important for us to stay competitive when it comes to salaries. So we are always looking at ways of giving better compensation, giving raises for our teachers and staff. So that way we can keep or retain the high quality and amazing teachers and staff we have. But also if we need to hire new staff members or new teachers, we can really be competitive in the market, so we can attract, again, high quality, highly effective teachers and staff. So it's very, very important for us to offer competitive salaries to our teachers and staff. And if we're not competitive, as you know, that could create potential of having vacancies, or maybe filling those vacancies by staff or maybe teachers who might not be the quality that we are looking for or aiming for here in our district. So, and I know we're going to be talking about some of the Dennis, our CFO, will talk more about our financials and how the district budget works as a whole. I know also Dr. Nichols or Natalie will be able to explain more about our district and how we are operating. But I want you to know, we are, in the eyes of the state, we are considered a property-rich district, meaning, that we are sending millions of dollars to the state every year for the past few years, part of that recapture formula, right? So because we are collecting taxes more than what we're supposed to have. As you know, the state, the way school districts are funded is not necessarily based on how much taxes they collect. School districts who are property rich, they get to keep some of that money, but also send back to the state. The school districts who are not property rich, the state actually compensate for the difference, and they will send money to the school district. In our case, we actually send a lot more to the state than actually what we're getting from them. So the fact that we're collecting more taxes, we don't get to keep every tax we collect, every funds we collect. It's really depending on that basic allotment formula that the state have, which is $6,200 per student times the number of students, and that's the amount of money that we get to collect. Anything that we collect beyond that actually goes back to the state. Again, Mr. Covington will be able to share some more. Just an example, this year we are slated to send more than $100 million in recapture to the state, over $100 million back to the state. So that brings us to Prop A. Why Prop A then? Prop A, it's asking for golden pennies, and golden pennies, 3 golden pennies in this case, are not subject to recapture. When a school district add golden pennies, those golden pennies are not subject to recapture. So any funds collected through those golden pennies the school district will be able to keep and also will help fund a variety of things. In this case, Prop A will be able to help increase compensation for our teachers and staff. So with no further delay, I just want to again thank you one more time, and also I hope that this presentation is helpful. And I want you to stick around as much as we can, as we are trying to answer any question that you may have after the presentation. I want to turn it over to our Senior Chief of Schools and Innovation, Dr. Nichols, so she can really start giving us an overview about our district.
Thank you, Dr. Aziz. I appreciate that. And also, again, thank you for everyone who's here with us today. What we hope is that you feel free to ask as many questions as possible. What we're here for is to make sure that we're educating our community so that you understand exactly why Proposition A, and you're able to make an informed decision. We're going to start first with providing context in regards to who we are as a district. Round Rock ISD is the 23rd largest school district in Texas. Now, to provide a little bit more context, understand that we have over 1,200 independent school districts and charter districts within the state of Texas. And so based on that, we're considered pretty large. We serve over 46,000 students in 56 different schools across elementary, middle, and our 7 high schools. Now, exactly then, what is our goal within all of our students? Of course, we have very different goals based on the level in which our students are attending. But across all of this, our aim is to make sure that our students are able to take advantage of their hopes and dreams based on the education that we provide. We provide services as far as fine arts, within career and technology, clubs and different activities, as well as premier academics. Within our class of 2023, they represented over 3,600 graduates across our 7 high schools. They earned over $54 million in scholarships, 7,600 industry certifications, and over 43 Associates of Arts degrees. And we're also proud to say that 35 of them chose to serve this great nation in the armed services. Now, how do we get there? As Dr. Aziz stated before, it is through the strength of the people that we're able to have such great outcomes for our students. We have over 6,300 employees within our wonderful district. This is represented by over 454 principals and assistant principals, over 1,200 paraprofessionals, over 1,300 auxiliary staff, 40 central administration personnel, 681 professional support, and last but certainly not least, about 3,500 teachers. And it's important to note that many of our teachers, 30% of our teachers, have advanced degrees and have over an average of 11.4 years of experience. Dr. Aziz again stated previously that 85% of our district budget is allocated towards staff. But it's important to note that of that 85%, 88% of that is actually campus-based. So we have our amazing employees, and we're able to create high-performing outcomes with our students based on all the things that they pour into our students. So now we want to explore why Prop A through the eyes of a specific teacher.
My name is Patrick Boylan. I'm a chemistry teacher here at Round Rock High School, and I've been here for 10 years now. There is a reason I've been here for 10 years. There's great leadership here on this campus in the district. We get lots of support. And as a teacher, I just really appreciate that. I feel like I have what I need to do my job and do my job well. So I've been teaching for 17 years, and when you take into account inflation, I made more my first year teaching than I'm making now. So it's a little frustrating, but I also really deeply believe in public education. I just hope that the public understands that as well. Not only me, but it's like it affects staff and staff morale and how difficult it is to take on all those extra responsibilities when there's just not enough staff, and it makes the job a little more difficult. I mean, I think it's just where we as a community decide what we value. And it's difficult as a teacher when you see other fields, other professions that are able to get salary raises that at least meet or exceed inflation. I chose this profession because I believe in public education. I think it's an important part of our country, our nation, right? I just think that this would just reaffirm that I'm a professional and I have the support of my community and that they value what I do.
While we saw Prop A through the eyes of a very specific teacher, know that this story is multiplied when we look at our principals, our assistant principals, our counselors, our paraprofessionals, everyone comes to this with a heart as far as how can I help our students reach their goals and dreams. And so it's a matter of, we're also hearing as far as what is needed in order for the staff to be engaged within this process, and how it also affects their morale as far as how they feel then the community will see their work. It's important to note that within Round Rock ISD, we have a chart here as far as what our teachers are able to earn. And within the area right now, we are at the bottom of our surrounding districts, coming in at 54,500, while you have Austin ISD at 55,844. While many of our staff have the heart as far as to do well for kids, we're also aware that they need to maintain and be able to afford their lifestyles as well. And so we see this as a major engagement strategy within our teachers, our paraprofessional, our counselors, as well. And I think, Dr. Aziz, I think you had a great point earlier in regards to what the salary for our staff.
If I may, and thank you, Natalie, for doing what you're doing. Just for our community members here, I just want to clarify one thing. This number that you see down here of 54,500, I want everybody to look at that number and remember that back in 2021-2022 school year, just a year and a little bit, less than 2 years ago, this number was at 50,250. So as a district, we were able, just for the past 2 years, really, or less, is really to work on trimming our budget. And I know Dennis, our CFO, will talk more about it, to increase by that number by more than $4,000 to 54,500. But even with that, we are falling short from the other school district. And this is just an example, right? But this is the teacher salary impacts more than, I mean, as you saw on the slide earlier with what Natalie is, almost 3,400 teachers who are impacted. We are giving you the example of our first year teachers, but as you know, despite our efforts to increase teacher salary, we are still falling short of the inflation that is 14 to 15%. I think the increases was about maybe 9%. So we are short now. If the voters, our voters, approve Prop A in November, I think that our estimate is this number will go up to 56,250. Eddie, please chime in if you think I'm wrong, but it will be over 56,000. I think it's 56,250. So we will be the top of all these districts that you see here on this chart. Thank you. Thank you, Natalie.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Aziz. That was a very important statistic in order to make sure that our community knows and understands. Again, what we covered is who we are as a district, what it is we believe in, what we see as our primary outcomes, but also as far as understanding that we run through based on the heart and the hard work of the many employees that we have within this district, and as far as wanting to be fair to the nature of their work and also to their heart. Now I'd like to turn it over to our CFO, COO, Mr. Dennis Covington, to kind of take us through the particulars as far as what exactly that looks like within the budget.
Good evening again, and thank you all for joining us. I will give you a very brief course on Texas Public School Finance 101. School districts have two budgets. It's called the M&O budget and the INS budget. Maintenance operations pays for all our salaries and the day-to-day operations of the district. Our interest and sinking funds pays for all our bonds that has been previously approved by the community. For the 2022 school year, our tax rate was 1.0626 with 0.208 being INS and 0.8546 being your M&O budget. The proposed tax rate for the 23 has the total tax rate at 0.9190, which is made up of a M&O rate of 0.7210 and 0.1980 for INS. This is a decrease from last year's tax rate of 14.36 cents. Did you know our proposed tax rate of the 9.9190 is the lowest it has been in the past 15 years for Round Rock ISD? And with the 0.919 of our district overall tax rate is expected to remain one of the lowest in Central Texas. Actually, it's the second lowest. And Dr. Aziz, you want to make a comment, sir?
Yeah, and I just want to again remind our community members who are present tonight. If you look at, I want you to look at the first column, the M&O. This is really the tax that we collect to operate our school district, meaning that money is actually goes directly to pay our teachers and staff, pay for fuel for our buses, if we need to fix or maintain HVAC units or whatever that might be in our schools, all that stuff is actually coming from that M&O tax rate. And so, and then all the opportunities that you see, right, all the extracurriculars, all that good stuff, right, that we offer to our amazing students, all that is funded through the M&O. The INS, as Dennis was saying, is all about, paying back our debts, usually the bonds, right? So I want you to see that or notice that the 0.721, that's with the 3 golden pennies. So if we didn't have the golden pennies, we'll be really the lowest among all the school districts, including Leander, including Pflugerville, right? Now, because of the golden pennies, that will take us a little bit higher than the Georgetown, but we'll remain the second lowest M&O tax rate in the area. So we are operating an amazing school district, offering huge opportunities for our students, obviously with the support of our parents and our community and our business partners. But we are doing this also keeping in mind that we have to be good steward of our taxpayers' money. And I want our community to know that just by looking at this, our tax rate is one of the lowest, and we are providing, first class learning opportunities for our students.
Our financial snapshot shows that funding for each of those budgets are funded from local tax dollars, calculated by the pennies collected times the 100 per 100 of the property value. Round Rock ISD's M&O tax rate, as Dr. Aziz has said, we have lowered our rate since 2019 every year. Let's take a look at recapture. Recapture in Texas is commonly known as the Robin Hood tax. It's where the property rich districts that collects more than the 6160 that Dr. Aziz said earlier, and those dollars are funded back to the state and then are funded out to fund the less property rich districts. But please note that the state takes in more recapture than they sends out to the other districts. And so, as you remember back before the legislative session, there was $33 million surplus talked about in the state's budget. Of that 33 million, almost 33 billion, almost 5 billion of it came from property rich districts. Our taxpayers in Round Rock ISD contributed to that surplus budget. If the fate is to pass, the 3 golden pennies will stay within this district. All those dollars, about 19 million, will go to fund salaries for the district. Also, I just want to highlight something else for you. If you look at the chart on the right, from the 2021 to the 21-22 school year, we collected 50 million more in taxes paid by our citizens. But if you look at the far right, our budget only went up 5.6 million. We took in 50 million more. Our operating budget only went up 5.6 million. And in next year, it's even worse. We took in 27 million more, but our operating budget went down $26 million due to recapture. How have we been able to operate the district in spite of those recapture bills? We've cut $25 million from the Round Rock's budget in the last 2 years. Although the cuts have reduced the district's previous budget deficit, it still does not provide enough money to further increase our salaries. In the adopted budget, we have approved by the Board of Education 3% increase for our teachers and librarians, and a 2% increase for all other staff. This was approved in the spring of 2023. Also, since 2019, keep this in mind, operating costs like salary, supplies, fuel, insurance, they continue to rise, while the state funding for school operations has not kept up with the pace. So let's look at the financial impact on the homeowner. The 2022 taxable value of a home of $500,000 with the homestead exemption of $40,000 brings the taxable value down to $460,000 times the 1.0626 tax rate. The tax bill for this homeowner would have been $4,888. If the VADR is to pass, the tax value of the $500,000 home will go up by the 10% that's allowable by the taxing authority. So your home value would be now $550,000. And the governor's homestead exemptions to pass, your homestead will increase to $100,000, which brings your now taxable value of that home down to $450,000. With the proposed tax rate of the 0.9190, your tax bill would be $4,136. That's a decrease of $752 per year, or $62.71 per month. Now I will turn it over to Dr. Azaiz to further talk about the VADR.
So there are a couple of questions that, and I know we will go dig deeper into your own questions, but I know the questions I always have people ask me when I meet with them is, number one, is our tax going to go up? And the answer is, as you just saw, the tax rate is going down by 14 pennies, right? Even if our voters approve Prop A. That's number one. Number two is, am I going to see my tax bill is going to go up? And as Dennis showed you earlier, no matter what happens, you're going to see a decrease in your tax bill. And depending on the value of your home, you may see, a couple $100 to maybe several $100, I'm sorry, in a reduction in the tax bill. And the other question I get asked all the time, what if you're collecting so much money from our taxpayers here in Round Rock, why can't you lower the tax rate even more? And the answer is, the state actually set a rate for us, which is called the maximum compression rate, meaning we cannot lower the tax rate lower than that set number, and usually that's set by the state. So we are not allowed to go lower than that particular number, and that number may vary from one year to another. So our number is the lowest you can. Then we add those golden pennies on top, right? So that's why we end up with the 0.916. But the base rate is at the maximum compression rate that is given to us by the state. So, and then like Dennis was saying, we collected more money, but because of the $6,200 formula, the $6,200 per student basic allotment that is set by the state, that was not increased since 2019, we are obligated to send the extra taxes we collect from our own local taxpayers to the state. And then, like, again, Dennis talked about it, that gets added to their surplus. So the state had historic surplus of $33 billion. And out of that was $4 to $5 billion that were collected through recaptures, meaning local property tax homeowners are, we sending that money, us, Austin ISD, several other school districts send that money to the state. And none of that money, as a matter of fact, was sent back or redirected to relieve or increase that basic allotment. Now, I can tell you that the Texas Comptroller's Office himself, even back in January before the session started, did talk to the outreach raters and mentioned that we need to ensure to give more money to the school district so they can be able to give bigger raises to their staff, so they can account for the 14 to 15% inflation rate increase. And he did mention something around $900 to $1,000 per student, meaning you needed to increase that $6,200 basic allotment to about $7,000 plus. So that way school district can have enough money to again account for inflation, so they can continue operating that school district and also provide extra compensation for their staff and teachers and staff, so they can also continue having staff or folks who are willing and wanting to come to education and teach our students, and also remain working and doing amazing things for our students. So obviously that did not happen. Thus, Prop A. So what is Prop A funding priorities? Strictly to recruit and retain, really retain and recruit high quality staff and teachers. We would love to keep our teachers here. They are doing amazing work, and they are working tirelessly to ensure that our students' needs are met, and we would like to keep them here. As you know, we are now not just competing with other school districts, we're also competing, we are surrounded with different tech companies, and they have no problem coming and taking out our amazing teachers, because they know they can do great things anywhere they are at. And so we definitely have to not only retain them and recruit them, but also it's our duty. I mean, our teachers work extremely hard, and they deserve for us to account for the inflation, and because they have to they have to take care of their families and make sure that, like you heard from our teachers, we need to make sure that they're making more money 10 years down the road, right? When we account for inflation. So that's really at the core of Prop A. Prop A will provide funds to go strictly to retain and recruit our highly quality teachers and staff. So how much money will be raised through Prop A? 3 golden pennies will allow us to raise $19 million. And that will allow us, besides the 3% that we give to our teachers and a librarian, and the 2% to the rest of our staff, is to give on top of that an additional 3% salary increase. So our teachers this year will see a 6% increase. The rest of the staff, like bus drivers, custodians, our principals, our counselors, our librarian, they all will get a 5% increase or pay increase in their salaries. And so, as I said earlier, you saw the slide, our teachers, our starting teacher salary is the lowest. And if our voters approve the Prop A and we increase by 3%, our starting salary for our teacher will be at $56,250, and that will put us in a very good position to retain our great teachers, and also recruit if we have to. But also, as I said, because they also deserve to have this raise. They have been struggling more than ever, really, again, accounting for inflation. So I think we are done with the presentation. Now we're gonna open it up for the Q&A session. So, Timai?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Aziz, and thank you to the panelists for this thorough presentation. At this point, we would like to commence the Q&A session of the forum. But before we get to the questions, I just want to take a moment to express heartfelt gratitude to all the folks who were able to join us this evening. We're so grateful for your interest in wanting to learn more about Prop A, for your engagement this evening as we gather together around this important topic, and of course for your courage in asking the questions that are needed so that we can increase our shared understanding of how Prop A can support our teachers and ultimately our students. So we're grateful for this opportunity to be in community with you in the spirit of full transparency. So let's go ahead and begin. As I shared before, we will begin with the questions that were submitted in advance of the forum, and then we'll follow up with the questions that you have submitted using Q&A feature in the webinar. And I'm looking at my screen. I'm so excited to see some questions down there. For each question addressed, I will paste the question in the chat feature, so you can use the chat feature to see the question that's being addressed at any point in time. And I'll also invite our panelists to look at the chat feature as well, if that helps you see the question and read it to be able to answer it appropriately. And as our Chief Financial and Operating Officer, Mr. Dennis Covington, you will be answering the questions for us tonight, sir. However, once you finish responding, if there's another panelist that would like to contribute to the question, feel free to come off mute and help address the questions as well. And also, Mr. Covington, if you feel that the question would be better answered by another panelist, feel free to invite them to do so. Do our panelists have any questions about how we're going to proceed? Okay, wonderful. All right. And so I am going to start with the questions that were submitted in advance, but I'm going to go out of order because there was a question submitted in the Q&A that I'd like to answer first, because I think it will affect folks being able to engage with this. And the question was, will this recorded forum be posted online? And we're happy to share that, yes, this forum is being recorded and it will be posted online on the Prop A webpage. Thank you for asking that very important question. So we're going to start by answering the questions that were in the Google form. And what I did was I went through the questions and I tried to group them together to help us answer them where it makes a little bit more sense. So what I'm going to do is post it in the chat. There's 2 questions here. And so, Mr. Covington, we have these questions that you'll see come through in the chat. Is 100% of the revenue generated going to go to teacher and employee pay? And then this was within a statement, but I think it's wondering if all the money goes to teachers and staffs, or if it goes to principals and vice principals or assistant principals.
The 3 golden pennies will support all staff in Round Rock ISD, including teachers, assistant principals, custodians, bus drivers. All staff within Round Rock ISD will benefit from the Prop A, and we will increase the salary increases from the 2% for all staff to 5%, and for the 3% for teachers and librarians to 6%.
Thank you so much for answering that question. The next group of questions, there's 3 actually together, but they all have to do with the budget deficit. So if you don't mind, I'm pasting all those in the chat for you to answer as well. So how will this additional revenue impact our budget deficit? Even if this bond passes, there will still be a budget deficit for this year. Is that correct? How is that going to be reconciled? And if this additional revenue won't close the budget deficit, what is the plan?
With the Prop A, the budget deficit will still be about $24 million. Without the passage of Prop A, the budget deficit would be approximately $33 million. And we will be reconciling that to get back to a balanced budget by appropriating money from our fund balance.
All right, thank you very much. And then I'm going to paste in the next set of questions. This has to do with the golden pennies. So how does a portion of the tax rate become a golden penny? Is there a maximum amount of golden pennies that Round Rock ISD can have? And do we expect to keep doing this until we reach a maximum?
As Dr. Aziz mentioned earlier, the state sets the maximum compress rate. And any pennies above the maximum compress rate are called golden pennies. And you can have up to 8 golden pennies. With the passage of Prop A, it would take us to the 8 golden pennies. Above that, there are these pennies called copper pennies that you can have up to 9 copper pennies. But of the copper pennies, all of those dollars raised by copper pennies will not be able to stay in the district. They are subject to recapture. But the Prop A is for the 3 remaining golden pennies, where all funds raised by those pennies will stay in the district.
If I can chime in, Timai. So the first 5 golden pennies, they don't require voters' approval. That's how the state set up the system, right? So the first golden pennies were already allocated. I think 4 of them were, I don't remember how many years back. And then another golden penny was added, I think in 2021, 2022 school year, if I remember correctly. And then now, because we're asking for 3, which is, that will be the maximum golden pennies we can ask for, 3 extra golden pennies. We must go and ask for voter approval. And that's why we had to put this on the ballot and also ask our voters to make a decision on it. But like Dennis was saying, I know like Pflugerville last year, for example, went and they already maxed out with golden pennies this year. And then I think they asked for a couple of golden pennies, and then they asked for a couple of copper. This year, they're asking for the remaining copper penny because there is, I think it's about 30 some to 40% yield that they on copper pennies that they can keep. They're not subject for recapture. The rest will have to be sent to the state.
Thank you for that, Dr. Aziz. All right, continue with the questions that were submitted in advance. Here's our next one coming through on the chat. I'll read it out loud for you. What has the district's Board of Trustees done to address controlling the runaway growth of recapture, especially concerning the 3 proposed solutions of Texas School Coalition's February 2022 report?
I mean, obviously, we are the administration. We have a very supportive board of trustees. I know they are a big advocate for public education and our district in particular, right? So I know that several of them attended the legislative session the last one, I guess, in the summer, in the spring, and I know even some of them even spoke in support of public education in Round Rock in particular, and also increase in public support and funding for school district. So they are very supportive. They met with many of them met with different state representatives and expressed their concern about the funding and the need for the state to increase the basic allotment and also support our district and as a whole public education, right? So again, they are very supportive. The issue with the recapture is also it's going to require the legislators going back and making some adjustment, and I think the capture is a great idea, but when it was created back, I think in the 90s, but I think eventually became almost like a burden on school districts, and at the same time, as I said, $4 or $5 billion that were added was a surplus to the state, and it wasn't even sent back to school districts, and so I think we collectively we all need to speak up again and talk to our local representatives to make sure that they understand. We're not opposed to recapture. We're opposed of the way it's set up right now, and we need to make sure that it's there's a fair system. Those funds that are collected through our property owners, I mean, they need to be staying in public education because that was the initial purpose of those tax dollars, right? So yeah. But as I said, I have nothing but great thing to say about the support of our board of trustees and their advocacy within our state to ensure again that we're fully funded.
Thank you for that response, Dr. Aziz. And the next question I'm going to put in the chat might be for you as well. It's going to continue with the question regarding the Board of Trustees. It's a long one, so I'm going to read that to you. Can the district's Board of Trustees pressure legislative representatives to reintroduce the cost of education adjustment in computing Round Rock ISD's entitlement? Has the board campaigned to ensure dollars that the state collects through recapture go to schools instead of other areas of the state budget? And will the board ally with taxpayers and parents and guardians to educate them by demanding property tax bills should clearly state how much of the money a property owner pays in local school taxes will be taken away by the state through recapture?
Yeah, no, as I said, no doubt. As I said, I know that our board of trustees are fully supportive of our public education and our district, and also I mean, I had several conversations with different board members who feel the same way, that there has to be a better, a more fair, I guess, system, and that and I know, but it's going to take more than just our board of trustees. I think it's going to require a collective effort, right? So it's going to require our parents, our community members, different school districts also involved in this conversation, so we can again better fund public education and have I guess a more fair system when it comes to recapture. Also, the way really the idea is if the state, this is my take on it, if this state just factor in the inflation into the basic allotment, like I said, the $6,200, I think that in itself will solve pretty much 90% of these the issues of recapture and all that stuff, right? So we just need the state really to look into that. And again, I wasn't even just me saying it, just our own Texas controller told them several times. Even now, just recently, a couple of weeks ago, he came out again in public and talked about, because I know there will be another session I think this month actually, and he said the same thing. We need to adequately fund public education by accounting for inflation and giving raises to teachers and staff to account for inflation. So this is our own, again, our own controller, right? That And that's pretty much what we all need to do to ensure again that our school district, but also as a whole public education in our great state of Texas is well funded and well supported, because as I said, the money is there. I mean, there was a historic $33 billion surplus. So.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aziz. All right. The next question, I think it can be up for grabs for any of the panelists that would like to answer that. So the question is, how soon can it be implemented? So I think this is asking if Prop A is passed, how soon can that be implemented?
I'll take that one. If Prop A passes, the salary increases will be retroactive back to July 1. And the payment of those retroactive salaries will be paid in January.
Thank you so much for that, sir. All right, so we now have our last question that was submitted in advance, and then we'll be able to move to the questions that are in our Q&A at the bottom of the screen. So here is this one coming through. It is multifaceted, so many questions in one. How much money or how many dollars total would a 3% raise for teachers be? What percentage of the overall budget would that be? How does that compare to the amount the board spent on legal fees and consultants since 2019? And what other options are there for giving teachers raises? What could be cut?
Yeah, I'll take that one. I can tell you that that the if the Prop A passes, so we will be given 6% to our teachers and 5% to the rest of the staff. That total number, it's an increase in our budget by $22 million. So it's more than what Prop A will generate, but it will be about $22 million if I remember the exact number. And so that's huge. I mean, that's a huge number. As far as legal fees, I know we had an increase in our legal fees, I think last school year, but this school year, our legal fees dropped by a lot. I think we are now talking about an average of about 25 to 30,000. I'm sorry, a month. So let's say in a year, we're looking at less than $500,000 in legal fees, and I think we're working hard to decrease that. So obviously, there's a huge difference between a $500,000 legal fee bill and 22 million. We need really 22 million in order for us to be able to give the 6% and the 5%. And the last part was, I think, what is the percentage that's going to teachers? As you saw earlier, we have almost 60% of our staff are teachers, and so the most of that increase would be going to teachers. I don't have the exact number, but it should be anywhere between 60 to 65% of that $22 million would be going toward giving a raise to our teachers. And Eddie, I don't know if you have the exact number, but that's I guess the best estimate I come up with.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so at this point, we were able to shift over to the questions that came in on Q&A during this forum. So thank you all for being patient before we get to these. The first question is going to be there in the chat. And that question is, how does our turnover rate for 22-23 compare to school year 21-22?
Yeah, I can take that. So our turnover rate for past year was 15.9%. Compared to 11.6% the year before that. So we, like a lot of districts in the area, saw a significant uptick in our turnover rate, but it is relative in that we remain the district with one of the lowest turnover rates in our area. We're second of the 11 comparative districts that we typically compare to. Now, PEAM snapshot is at the end of October, and that's when the state really measures our turnover year to year. And so we won't have our turnover data in terms of the state reporting data until later in the fall. But anecdotally, our turnover is a little bit lower this year than it has been in previous years. In the year preceding that. And some of that, I think, is down to the fact that we have been able to provide compensation increases to teachers and staff. And we've worked very hard to work on some other ways to retain our staff as well, such as through affordable housing and some strategic incentives too. So definitely saw a little bit of a decrease between last year and this year, but we'll have that data to provide to our community later in the fall.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Mr. Curran. We're moving on to our next question. All right. I agree with increasing the salary of teachers. They have a very hard job and need to be compensated accordingly. I admire teachers and plays a very important role shaping our community. I want to thank them for their hard work and dedication. My question is, how does Proposition A affect student-teacher ratio?
Eddie, would you like me to take that one? And so there's a lot of things that goes into student-teacher ratio. Overall, when we give student-teacher ratio, we factor in all types of classrooms. Oftentimes, people are thinking of our more core classrooms, but it takes into consideration our special education populations and some of our other populations like that, which would usually enjoy a smaller ratio. So specifically then, when we do not have teachers for our classroom, what happens then is the classrooms they still have to have a teacher in front of them. We can't not provide an education. So what happens then, it creates overloaded classrooms. Oftentimes we see there are specific areas where we suffer a little bit more hardship as far as finding teachers. That's usually in previous years, we saw that it was harder for our dual language classrooms in elementary school. This year, HR has taken great pains in order to reduce that. Now we're seeing areas such as special education where they're harder to fill. Languages other than English, harder to fill. And so it means then, in order to provide a teacher to every student, that those classes are usually a little bit more than others. It is not the same for every campus. It is all dependent as far as who we're able to find and who that campus is able to hire. But typically for those harder to find classrooms, what we're seeing is they typically would enjoy higher than normal ratios than other classrooms.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nichols, for that response. For the next question, we're going back to the golden pennies. How much money is the district able to keep in these golden pennies and affect our teachers in a positive way?
The value of the 3 golden pennies is approximately $19 million. And as was stated earlier, all $19 million will go towards salary increases for all staff, with teachers' salary increase going from 3% to 6%, and all other staff going from 2% to 5%.
Thank you very much for that, sir. Okay, panelists, we're going to keep going with the questions that we have in the Q&A feature. Here's the next one. I think this might have been already addressed by Dr. Aziz, but I'm going to read it. So there will be no tax increase, even if Prop A is approved. Thanks for confirming.
That's absolutely correct. We actually decreased by about 14 pennies, but not only the decrease in the tax rate, we also estimating that we will be decreased in the tax bill, because I know in the past couple of years, despite the fact that we are able to reduce the tax rate, sometimes our taxpayers, our homeowner property taxpayers, end up seeing maybe an increase in their tax bill. And it's just because the property values is going up, right? So when we did some calculations, because of the decrease of about 14 pennies, and also there's a 10% cap as far as that how much the property value can increase by. And so when you did the math, like the slide I think Dennis showed earlier, in a home that is valued at $500,000, even with an increase by 10%, our taxpayers will see a decrease by over $700 in their tax bill. So it's a decrease all around, and also a saving, even with if our voters decide to approve Prop A.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Aziz. And the next question I put in there, just a little out of order, but it pertains to the golden pennies again. So given the homeowner savings, could we increase the number of golden pennies next year to support the teachers further?
So as I said, and I don't know if, the golden pennies, with the 3 golden pennies will be at max with golden pennies. The only thing that would be left, like Dennis was saying earlier, is going to copper pennies. State allows school district to go with another, to add another 9, up to 9 copper pennies. And if any school district, like as I said, Pflugerville is actually going for those right now, this in November. The only difference between a copper penny and a golden penny is that the yield is not the same. A golden penny yields 100% to the school district. They keep all that money. The copper pennies only yield about 30-some%, about 40, no more than 40%, if I remember correctly. That's how much is, I mean, it's still will provide some money that school district will keep, but it's not the same yield like golden pennies.
Thank you for that, sir. Here's our next question coming through the chat. Is there a way to more accurately anticipate recapture payments to have less of an impact on salaries?
I'll take that one. The recapture calculation has about, from what I was told when I went up to visit TA, it's about 64 calculations that go into determining what the recapture amount will be. As far as anticipating it, we just recently received the final recapture calculation for last school year. And the school year ended for us back in June. And we just received what our total tax will be for, our total payment for recapture. We just received it. So the impact of recapture it does not have a one-to-one impact on our salaries. It just lowers the amount of money that the district has to operate.
If I can add another thing, I know the questions that sometimes I hear is like, well, if you get more students, you get you don't have to send a recapture. And that's not necessarily, yes, maybe we can get to keep more, right? But we will still have to send recapture. So Dennis showed a slide earlier that we'll be sending about $115 million to the state as form of recapture. Even if we had another 5,000 students here in our district, the way, again, the calculation is done by the state is about $6,200 for basic allotment per student. That's times 5,000. That will be 30 plus, let's say $35 million. So that's how much money as a school district we get to keep, but we still have to send the difference. So yes, having more students will allow us to keep a little bit more of their recapture money. We still have to send the difference, which is in this case will be more than 70, almost $80 million back to the state anyway. But also when you have more students, it helps. But if you have a really like a number like 5,000 students more, you still have to hire more teachers in this case. You still have to have more buses running. You still have to have, possibly more counselors in the schools, right? So it's also increases what I'm trying to say. Yes, we get to keep a little bit more, but also will increase also the expenditures for a school district to operate. And so that's why the right thing for the state is to account for inflation and increase that basic allotment. Again, like the Texas Controller said, anywhere between $900 to $1,000 per student, because the cost of operating the school district has been increasing since 2019. And so the state need to account for that. And we want to continue obviously advocating for that from the state.
Thank you for that question, sir. And looking at the next one, it has to do with student enrollment. You might have answered this one as well, but I'll go ahead and read it to you and all the panelists. Isn't the cut of the ISD budget due to a decreased number of students in public schools?
I mean, as I said, they were always less enrolled students, obviously less money the state allow us to keep, right, or have. But as I said earlier, I mean, we get $6,200 per students for basic allotment. So for every, I said 1,000 students, we get an extra 6.2 million, for example. And so that's how it works. In our case, we are holding steady as a school district. Our demographer report is posted on our website. The demographers, they look at anything from new development to birth rates to also students who are graduating from our high schools, and now we have, let's say, how many empty nesters, if you will, we have within our community, and we are really, as far as where we at as a school district, I encourage everyone to just go to our website and look at the demographic report, and it tells you pretty much we are spot where we at as far as the number of students. It's not like we've been losing thousands of students. It's just we've been holding steady, and that's, again, there are different factors, plus the cost of living too is also adding more burden our younger couples and families to move into our area here and live in Round Rock SD.
Thank you for providing that additional detail, sir. The next question: are there plans for teacher housing assistance?
Dennis is giving me a look. I think that's me. We are really excited that we were able to, thanks to our board of trustees, launch a version of this past year. We just actually got approval in June, and the program itself launched in April. And so our initial steps in this are providing up to 100 subsidized apartments for not just teachers, but primarily teachers, but also other staff are eligible for those as well. So we currently have those available, and we're working hard with those complexes to make sure that we've given the appropriate information to our employees so that they can apply for those as well. So that's an area of exploration for us. We put our toe in the water this year, and I'm very excited about the fact that we were able to turn that around so quickly and get those apartments online as quickly as we have. And I would imagine that, like a lot of school districts in the state and across the country, that's an area that we may in the future look to expand as well. So definitely it's been well received by those who have benefited from it in terms of our employees to date.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Mr. Curran. And I was looking at you as well for that question. All right, our next question coming through in the chat for you panelists. So I agree it is important for salaries, but also as a staff member whose budget has been cut drastically the past few years when supplies needed are affected by inflation, will this also help budgets for things like that?
Can I speak to that, folks? So I think it's a great call out as well. And I think another area that I don't know if we explicitly called out earlier was just other pressures that teachers have, like and staff have, like health insurance increases, and Dennis mentioned the cost of gas and things that we all see in our pocketbook when we fill up. But I do think that anytime that we can make an adjustment like this that impacts our bottom line salaries, I think the idea is that it can help with some of those inflationary pressures. But I think Dr. Aziz said this earlier, it's not, this is a really good start, but we're always playing that uphill struggle to try and keep up with inflation. And it's a mountain that we are going to really struggle to continue to increase unless we see some sort of adjustment from the state. Another thing that was called out earlier was we've given consistent increases over the past few years since 2019, but we haven't received a funding formula increase since 2019. And so we're actually doing more with the same amount of money than we were, and really with the same levels of staff. So the fact is that we've worked very hard to try and manage that budget, but we really don't have a lot more wiggle room within that budget at this point without any support from the state.
Thank you for that, sir. For our next question, I think this might go back to Mr. Covington. Will the passing of Prop A allow for recapture payments to the state to be less in the future?
The passing of Prop A is truly the golden pennies. And as we stated before, golden pennies does not have any effect on the recapture payments because all dollars generated by Prop A will stay in the district.
But can I also add something to that? So Dennis is correct, but we anticipate our recapture money to decrease because we are decreasing our tax rate by 14 pennies. So we are actually collecting overall, we're collecting less funds from our taxpayers, right? So that means most likely we'll be sending less money to the state. But like Dennis also was explaining, it's very hard for a school district to determine that amount, especially early on in this school year. We usually get numbers from them, and that number fluctuates from one month to another. And we won't know until probably the fall of next year how much we have to send for the previous school year. That's how complicated and how, unfortunately, this DEA works.
All right, thank you. Did you have something to add, Mr. Covington? Okay, so the next question I'm going to pop in there just because it does have to do with the golden pennies as well. So what percentage of golden pennies of the $19 million will our teachers see, not the rest of the staff?
I think I tried to answer that question earlier, and forgive me if maybe I wasn't clear. So as I said, we have about 60%, almost 60% of our staff are teachers, and we are given actually a higher rate. We're given 6% increase to our teachers versus 5% to the rest of the staff. So we are estimating anywhere between about 65% or so of our the Prop A, if approved, money will go to our teachers. But also we cannot forget about also the support staff, like our bus drivers, our custodians, our counselors. I mean, they're our leaders who've been working with our students again to make sure that their needs have been met. They also will be receiving some of this money because they also are experiencing the same challenges. And so we are hoping that we'll be able to provide relief to our teachers, but also to the rest of the support staff that work very closely with our teachers. Remember that 88% of our payroll is campus based. So folks who actually work day in and day out with our students.
Thank you for that, sir. This next question, I think maybe every panelist might want to chime in on this. Let's see here. Shouldn't the state be increasing the basic allotment per student to help keep pace with inflation? And wouldn't that mean that Round Rock ISD would not have a budget deficit?
100%. I mean, if they increase by $1,000 or $900 per the basic allotment, we won't be even having this conversation today. That will provide a huge relief to all our teachers and staff by giving them most likely even a bigger raise. That also will allow us to operate our district without having to worry, and how can we figure out what do we need to do today and what can we postpone until next year. We don't have to. I think one of our staff members asking about cutting some of their supply or their budget to run different programs. We don't have to worry about that. We won't have to really all stress about like how can we make things work for our students, right? And again, don't hear it from me. As I said, it takes like 2 minutes to Google Texas Controller's office and Texas Controller. And again, he talked personally with the Texas administrators. He came in on news media and talked about the need to account for inflation. And I think he proposed anywhere between 900 to 1,000, if I remember correctly, too. So that's really what needed to happen. Unfortunately, it did not happen with even with the $33 billion historic surplus. I hope that maybe down the road that could rectify. But I think there was a lot of money, as I said, to give our taxpayers a huge tax relief, but also allocate more funding for our teachers and staff so we can again do even a better job with our students.
And if I can just add to that, from the idea of like more so from the heart as well, wholeheartedly agree with that comment. We have the work of working with students is work where people are often driven by their purpose to not just help the community, but to really make sure that we're ensuring the next level of leaders and people within the community. And so oftentimes people give so much of themselves in order to do this work and to make sure that our kiddos are okay. And as we've stated previously, if the people who are doing this work, we see as part of our responsibility to make sure that we're taking care of them as well. And they have the opportunity to live at least a decent life and to be able to take care of themselves. If we're going to be worrying about our kids, it's very hard to be worrying about our students and making sure that our students are okay, while at the same time being worried about your livelihood as well and your ability to take care of yourself and your own family. And so we see that as leaders as a basic part of our responsibility to our teachers and staff.
And I'd just like to add, as we all know, we are in a nationwide staffing shortage in all areas across the nation. Now, Texas is lower than a lot of states, you know, but we're still at anywhere from 5.5 to 6% of a basically vacancy rate across the state right now. And so given that, unlike the private sector, we can't increase profits. We are not in a position to drive revenues into our system, and we are completely dependent on our legislators to help with that. And so with that being said, given that, as to Natalie's point, I think there really isn't more of a precious commodity into the future of the state than to develop their future leaders. I think we could really benefit from some support from our legislators in order to be able to drive some funding into pay for the folks who are helping those future leaders of the state to continue to thrive well after we have retired and moved on. So we really do need that investment, not just of the money, but also from the support from our legislators to help with that vision and mission.
Thank you so much for that. The next question might be related. What can we do to support Prop A beyond just voting for it?
Well, we cannot really do what, we appreciate the question though, but we cannot advocate. I mean, we only think, I mean, we can say that please share these facts that we share with you tonight with your neighbors, with your friends, talk to them about, you know, Prop A. There, we have also a website I will share with you later that has a lot of frequently asked questions. So we only can share facts, and you know, we hope that you also share these facts with your neighbors, again, with your friends, with your family. That way they know exactly how our budget works, what are the constraints that we are facing, our challenges facing our district, and also what Prop A is.
Also, to just thank the audience again. Being an educator, it means that we delight in questions, because it lets us know then what our constituency may not be understanding, areas where we may need to be more clear, and really come together and provide more education around certain areas, because this is not your everyday work. And so we have a responsibility to make sure that we're being clear as far as understanding of how all of this looks and how this works, so that you can make an informed decision. So from a position of support, I think just being here, asking really questions and letting us know where we can provide more information is incredibly helpful to this process.
Thank you for that, Dr. Nichols. All right, next in the chat. So this looks like more of a comment than a question, but I want to honor the response. Thank you for allowing this meeting through Zoom. I believe and agree that teachers are the foundation of our children's future. Having and maintaining competitive teachers with high education degrees and continuing training certifications, it's necessary to provide a decent salary. I agree with Prop A. Thank you so much for that comment. And I'm going to continue looking through for the next question here and paste that. Okay, here we go. This raise doesn't seem like it is enough. How can we make up the difference so that teachers and staff are making a living wage?
Well, I mean, as a district, we're going to continue trying to figure out a way to give raises. I think at the core, really, if there is a magic bullet, if you will, if there is a solution right now, is really for the state to account for inflation. So we have to continue advocating for our teachers, staff, and public education as a whole. I'm talking about all of us, right? Like staff members, but also community members, parents, everyone who really cares about public education around Rock ISD in particular is really to advocate with our legislators everywhere they go, just to how first of all how important to have a robust public education system, but also how important also to fund it adequately so we can continue taking care of our students' need and also providing them with, again, the world-class the best opportunities out there for our students. So the more we can advocate, the better. The magic bullet is really to increase basic allotment. And that's the only way we can really, and then account for inflation. I know there were some bills were proposed at some point to have that basic allotment somehow attached or aligned, I guess, with the inflation. So if inflation goes by 5%, would they want to increase that basic allotment by 5%? That way we can continue providing the resources for our students and also for our teachers, but also compensate them adequately. Really, the solution has to be increase in basic allotment. All of us advocating for that.
Thank you for that, Dr. Aziz. Our next question is coming through on the chat. Did you know that Round Rock ISD spends less per student on administration than over 1,000 of the 1,207 districts in Texas?
I think that's more of a comment, right? And that's absolutely, thank you, whoever said that. It's really true. And as I said, we continue being good stewards of our taxpayers' money, and we keep that in mind. Those kind of reports are made in public. They're part of the reports we send to TEA. It's called PEAMS reports, and anyone can access this. This is not something AZ is saying it or Dennis Commenton is saying it. This is something that's public information for folks to look at. So whoever wrote that comment obviously did his homework or her homework.
Thank you for that. All right, the next question, please explain again what copper pennies are and how they come about. I know we've addressed this, but since the question says again, I want to make sure we honor the question and help explain that better.
Yeah, so as I said, the copper penny they come after the golden pennies are all being used, so we have school district have access to up to 8 golden pennies. Once those are used, or after we get to 8, you can ask for copper pennies, and there are up to 9 that school district can ask for. And again, it will require voter approval if school district wanna have those. But as I said, the difference between the copper pennies and the golden pennies is the yield that they provide to the school district. So if you, like, for the 3 golden pennies, we're collecting those $19 million. We get to keep all of it. If they were copper pennies, we only get to keep about, as I said, roughly close to 40%, 30-some% to 40%. So it's still, we get to keep some of it, but we don't get to keep the entire amount of money. And so that's really the difference between copper penny and golden pennies.
Wonderful. Thank you for that explanation, sir. Here's our next question. Will our recapture go down thanks to this much lower tax rate? And even with Prop A, our tax rate will be much lower than last year, right?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, and again, I didn't do a good job explaining. Yes, our tax rate will go down by 14 pennies from last year to this year. Overall, tax bill will go down depending on the property value of the house. Expecting saving, even if our voters approve a Prop A, everyone will see a tax decrease in their tax bill and the tax rate, obviously, right? We're estimating, right, that also because we're collecting less money from our taxpayers, then we will be sending less money to the state. And so that's also an estimate as of now, but we think it's going to be the case.
Thank you, sir. And another question about recapture. Why did the recapture increase rate so dramatically in the last 2 years?
Because we've been collecting more money. Despite us lowering the tax rate, the property values keep going up. And we have 2 different properties. I mean, we have obviously the homeowners, but also we have the business, right, side. So the business side, they don't have a 10% cap. And so that there is a higher increase in the collection from the business side. And so although we lower the tax rate to the maximum compression rate plus the 5 golden pennies we had already in place, we collected more taxes. And again, we want to lower our tax rates for our taxpayers here more, but we cannot go lower than that if we're factoring the 5 golden pennies. So we have to send more money or more funds to the state because of it. So that's really what happened.
Thank you. Our next question is in the chat, and panelists, I'm going to have to ask you to help me with that pronunciation of the last name. I apologize. I'm not sure if I'm going to say it correctly. Does State Representative John
Lucy.
Thank you. Advocate.
Yes, 100%. He's a big advocate. He's a big advocate for public education and Round Rock ISD in particular. I think he is one of our taxpayers actually, and I think he has, if I remember correctly, his kids will be attending one of our campuses. Yeah, he's definitely a great advocate for our public education and our school district.
And can I just add, he has just been recently just touring our campuses to learn more about our campuses, the services we provide, and also to be an even better advocate for us as well. So just wanted to mention that he has taken his time lately to tour our
100%.
campuses and learn more about us.
Yep.
Thank you so much. All right, here is our next question, going back to golden pennies. If Prop A gets passed, will we continue to get 8 golden pennies moving forward, or will we have to do this measure on a yearly basis?
Once you approved it, it's we don't have to go back to our voters again next year or the following years. Obviously, tax rate, as you know, we try to work based on the property values and also the maximum compression rate. And also, as you know, we cannot. I mean, we talking about dentist administration. We present to the board, our board, usually what we think is the tax rate should be, and obviously always has to be approved by our board of trustees, but we don't have to go back to the voters for that.
Thank you for that. Is there anything negative that would happen if Prop A passes?
We don't see. I don't think there is anything negative if it passes. Prop A will generate $19 million that will help increase compensation, as I said, to 6% for our raised 6% for our teachers, 5% for the rest of the staff. That will help us recruit and retain and recruit our highly qualified and amazing teachers and staff. So we do not, as administration, we do not see any negative impact.
I would like to add that on the other side of that, if Prop A fails, our budget deficit will grow from 24 million to 33 million.
Thank you for that. And I'm pasting another question that just came in that's related. What would an opponent of Prop A say would be a reason to vote no?
I mean, we have, although I appreciate the question, I want everybody to know that we have to there's a fine line for us, right? We cannot, we cannot advocate for this or not, right? We are here just to explain facts. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there is a reason to vote no. I really don't know.
Are there other panelists that have a response to this question? All right, so that in itself is an answer. Thank you. All right, so if you believe it or not, I think we have, oh, sorry. I was going to say that was coming up on our last question, but another one just came in. So I want to make sure that we honor that. Let me place that in here for you. What happens with the surplus money left over?
What surplus? I want to make sure I understand the question. If it's the surplus is the money that we collect in property taxes, that's recapture, right? So we send that to the state. If that's the meaning, as I said, there's a formula, the way we get funded, and that's $6,200 per student's basic allotment. So then you multiply with the number of students. Anything you collect more, obviously we send back. So we don't get to keep any surplus money. I don't know if the surplus money meaning the something else. And again, forgive me if I misunderstood the question.
Forgive me for interrupting, but I did get some clarification on that. So the response surplus from the golden pennies.
Oh, so as I said, the 19 golden pennies will go to increase or to help us pay the 6% raise for our teachers and then the 5% for the staff. It will cost, that increase alone will be over $22 million. And the golden pennies will increase by $19 million. We'll generate $19 million. So it will cost us over $22 million to give those raises. The golden pennies will produce $19 million.
And another related question, why didn't we have 8 golden pennies previously?
The only thing I can think of is that we weren't faced with inflation. As I said, our back in 2019, our starting salary for our teacher was at $49,000 back in 2019. And so since 2019, as you know, so many things happened, including in the inflation, right? And the COVID that caused all this stuff, right? So anyway, so obviously at that time, maybe there was no need for it, but because we went from 49,000 starting salary everybody's salaries went up, including for our bus drivers were struggling finding bus drivers, our custodians, same thing. So our starting salary for our custodians now is over $15, where it used to be maybe $12 or $11 an hour, maybe a few years ago, back in 2019. So we had to increase our compensation. Again, one is to retain our quality folks, right? And then two, to be able to be competitive so we can recruit if we have to. And so we needed to increase how much money we are getting. And that's why we go on now for the golden penny, since the state did not increase the basic allotment. At that time, maybe they felt that they need to have extra funds at that time. And maybe hoping that the illustrators also will keep up with inflation. As you know, it did not happen. So I think that's really that's why we are proposing Prop A. Again, if the illustrators increase the basic allotment by $900 or $1,000, probably won't be talking about golden pennies tonight with you. That's really the situation. It's almost like we are cornered, we are stuck, and none of us expected this. Again, with $33 billion surplus, I did not expect it coming into the session. In January, I mean, we thought we will get, our taxpayers will get tax relief, and also our school districts in the state of Texas will get also relief due to the inflation, right? So, I mean, we did not know that we will be in this kind of position.
Thank you for that, Dr. Aziz. And I love that I'm seeing more questions come in. It seems like the responses are inspiring more questions and the questions are inspiring more questions. So thank you so much, audience, for engaging with us in this way. Here's our next question. Since the reason for the recapture dramatic increase was collecting more tax funds for Round Rock ISD, what were the increase in tax dollars that were not recaptured used to fund?
I'll try to answer that one. If you recall from the chart that I had back on one of the slides for the 22-23 school year, we had less operating dollars than we had for the 21-22 school year. So in order for us to fund salary increases that we gave for the 22-23 school year, remember, we also had to find cuts within our budget to help cover those. So most of the dollars that were not sent back to recapture was used to fund salary increases for the 22-23 school year. Also, there was, as you recall, when we presented the budget for the 22-23 school year, there are inflationary costs that was mandatory that we had to cover. For instance, our property insurance went up $1.6 million for that year. And then we also have, as Dr. Aziz said before, other operating costs due to inflation went up. That's non-negotiable. For instance, diesel to run our buses. We have no say-so in those costs. And so the funds that was not sent back for recapture went to fund inflationary things within the budget, along with salary increases for us to stay competitive.
But again, I mean, there wasn't like, I know we've been as a school district, we've been collecting more dollars, right, from our property owners, our taxpayers. But most of that money is being sent because, again, the state uses that formula, right? So it's not like again, the majority of that money is being sent to the state. So it's just the formula and the lack of increase in basic allotment is really what's causing all these challenges.
Thank you so much. And we have a couple of comments that have come in, not questions, but I do want to honor the time of the folks who joined us. I'm just going to read those. We have one that says, you guys are awesome. We have one that says, it's okay. We understand we're faced with unforeseen changes. And I'm watching the Q&A. It doesn't look like that number is climbing. I don't see other questions coming in. Now, panelists, there is one question that I hesitated. I'm not sure if I should put in the chat or not. But I think if we are wrapping up the Q&A session before we return to our remaining slides that Dr. Aziz is going to walk us through, I think I'm going to just do this because even though they're coming in through Q&A, the questions I'm sharing anonymously on the chat. So here's our final question. I think it's a great way to end the Q&A session. Can you send me a picture of Mr. Covington's shoes? I'm just kidding. Love you, Mr. Covington. All right.
I love you back.
Let's just hope he's wearing shoes at Zoom.
All right. So with that, I believe that we have answered all the questions we've received, and it looks like we're able to conclude the forum. I will ask our community relations team at this point to bring back up the presentation, and I invite our superintendent, Dr. Aziz, to take us through the final remaining slides.
Well, thank you again, Timai, for moderating this forum. So I just want to share with our community again that we still have 2 more public forums. We have one in person tomorrow from 6 to 8 p.m. at McNeil High School. We'll be in the cafeteria there. And then we also have another one in person public forum will be at Stony Point High School and also will be from 6 to 8 p.m. That will be on October 24th, 2023. And then I shared with you earlier that we have actually a website. We have a website that has a lot of information. I would encourage everyone to go there. I don't know if we can have somebody click on that link and allow us to go there real quick. But it really has a lot of important information that you can study everything about our budget and Prop A. Everything is in there pretty much. But also we have an opportunity to also ask more questions. We have an app called Let's Talk that will allow you or allow whoever has a question to submit that question to us, and we'll be more than happy to respond. And also what we can do is also make those questions and answers available to the rest of the public. If you can scroll down, obviously this is the website. Thank you very much. If you can a little bit down, there is a Q&A. If you can click on that Q&A section, please. So for our community members to see where it is. But again, there's a lot of information here. Okay. Okay. All right. So anyway, okay. But anyway, I don't want to take more of your time. Again, I just want to make sure that you guys see and know exactly that we have this available for everyone. I just want to end really I want to thank you all again for your time and most of all for your support to our students, educators, and our staff members here in Round Rock ISD. I want you all to know that we cannot do it without you and without your help, without your support. Our community always has shown time again how much it cares about students, how much it cares about our district and schools in general. Please encourage your friends, and your neighbor to attend one of our upcoming meetings in person forums. We will have also this presentation that is recorded available online for them to view it. We want to make sure that we provide as many answers to any questions that they may have, and we hope you make your voice heard in the upcoming election. And please reach out with any questions. You will be happy to help answer. Again, thank you very much. We are honored and really to be among you tonight. Thank you for taking the time. That in itself, it shows how much you care and how much you support our school district. Early voting starts October 23rd, all the way to November 3rd. And election day is Tuesday, November 7th. Just a reminder that that's just only a couple of weeks away. So again, thank you very much, Timai. Thank you for being our moderator tonight. Thank you to the entire team for making this happen. Again, remember, it starts with us.
Thank you very much to our panelists, Dr. Azaiz, Dr. Nichols, Mr. Covington, Mr. Curran for being here. Thank you to Community Relations for helping us navigate, facilitate the virtual forum. And thank you all, community members and staff members, for your gift of time. Wishing you a wonderful evening, and may you be well, may your children be well. Thank you. Good night.